World War II, a global conflict of unprecedented scale and devastation. It raged from 1939 to 1945, engulfing nations and forever altering the course of human history. Millions perished, empires crumbled. The world was left grappling with the aftermath of a war that tested the very limits of humanity. But from the ashes of destruction arose a new world order. This is the story of that war. A story of courage and sacrifice, of tyranny and resilience. It is a story that must be told, remembered, and learned from. For in understanding the past, we gain insights into the present and hope for a more peaceful future. Join us now as we journey back in time. We will explore the battlefields, unravel the political complexities, and delve into the lives of those who lived through this tumultuous period. This is the story of World War II. To truly understand World War II, we must first journey back to the years leading up to its outbreak. The seeds of conflict were sown in the aftermath of World War I. The Treaty of Versailles, intended to ensure peace, instead bred resentment and instability. Germany, burdened by crippling reparations and territorial losses, became fertile ground for extremist ideologies. The global economic depression of the 1930s further exacerbated tensions. Nationalism surged as nations turned inward, seeking scapegoats for their economic woes.
In Germany, Adolf Hitler and his Nazi party rose to power, exploiting the widespread discontent and promising national revival through expansion and racial purity.
Meanwhile, in Japan, militarism took hold as the nation sought to expand its empire in Asia. Italy, under the rule of Benito Mussolini, pursued its own imperial ambitions in Africa. The League of Nations, weakened by inaction and internal divisions, proved powerless to stop the growing threat to peace. The world watched with growing apprehension as Germany, Italy, and Japan embarked on a path of aggression. Germany annexed Austria and Czechoslovakia, emboldened by the lack of meaningful opposition. Italy invaded Ethiopia, further highlighting the League of Nations' impotence. In Asia, Japan launched a full-scale invasion of China, committing atrocities that shocked the world. The stage was set for a global conflict. On September 1, 1939, Germany invaded Poland, shattering the fragile peace that had held for 2 decades. Great Britain and France, bound by treaty to defend Poland, declared war on Germany. World War II had begun. Over the next 6 years, the conflict would spread across the globe, drawing in nations from every continent. From the beaches of Normandy to the jungles of the Pacific, the fate of the world hung in the balance. The German invasion of Poland on September 1, 1939, marked the beginning of World War II in Europe. Employing a revolutionary new tactic known as blitzkrieg, or lightning war, German forces combined fast-moving tanks, mobile infantry, and close air support to devastating effect. Polish defenses, caught off guard by the speed and ferocity of the attack, crumbled under the onslaught. Within weeks, Poland was divided between Germany and the Soviet Union, which had signed a non-aggression pact with Hitler just days before the invasion. The world watched in horror as the brutality of modern warfare was unleashed on a scale never before seen. The fall of Poland sent shockwaves through Europe. Great Britain and France, having declared war on Germany in response to the invasion, found themselves ill-prepared for the German blitzkrieg. A period of relative inactivity followed, known as the Phony War, during which both sides built up their forces along the French border. However, the calm would be short-lived. In the spring of 1940, Hitler unleashed his forces once more. Denmark and Norway fell quickly to German advances, securing vital supply lines and bases for future operations. Then, on May 10, 1940, the Germans launched a surprise attack on France, bypassing the heavily fortified Maginot Line and pouring into the country through the Ardennes forest. While the Battle of Britain raged in the skies above England, a conflict of even greater magnitude was brewing in the east. On June 22, 1941, Hitler broke his pact with Stalin, unleashing Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion in human history. Millions of German soldiers stormed across the Soviet border, catching the Red Army off guard. The initial German advance was swift and brutal.
Soviet forces, hampered by poor leadership and outdated equipment, were ill-prepared for the scale and ferocity of the attack. Cities fell, industries were captured, and millions of Soviet soldiers were killed or captured in the opening months of the campaign.
The vastness of the Soviet Union, however, would prove to be both a blessing and a curse for the invaders. As the Germans pushed deeper into Soviet territory, they encountered fierce resistance from both the Red Army and the Soviet people. The harsh Russian winter set in, slowing the German advance and inflicting heavy casualties on the ill-equipped invaders. The Battle of Moscow, a brutal 5-month struggle fought in sub-zero temperatures, marked the first major German defeat of the war.
Despite the setback at Moscow, the fighting on the Eastern Front continued with unrelenting ferocity. The Germans, obsessed with capturing the oil fields of the Caucasus, launched a massive offensive in the south in the summer of 1942. This led to the Battle of Stalingrad, one of the bloodiest and most consequential battles in human history.
While Europe was engulfed in flames, a separate theater of war unfolded in North Africa. British and Italian forces struggled for the Suez Canal. Harsh desert conditions tested endurance. The arrival of General Rommel shifted the balance. His tactics earned victories and respect. Key locations like Tobruk and El Alamein changed hands. The Second Battle of El Alamein was decisive. Securing the Suez Canal was vital. It paved the way for the invasion of Italy. The North African campaign was crucial to Allied victory. While armies clashed on land, a different kind of battle raged at sea, the Battle of the Atlantic. This long and grueling campaign was a struggle for control of the vital sea lanes connecting North America to Great Britain. Germany unleashed its formidable submarine fleet to strangle Britain's supply lines. U-boats preyed on Allied merchant ships carrying vital supplies. The tide turned with new technologies and tactics. Long-range aircraft extended Allied air power, squeezing U-boats' operational freedom. By summer 1943, the U-boat threat was contained, securing vital sea lanes. Section 5. Turning the Tide, Allied Victories. The year 1942 marked a turning point in World War II. The Allied victories at Midway, Guadalcanal, El Alamein, and Stalingrad, while hard-fought and costly, signaled a shift in the balance of power. The Axis powers, having reached the peak of their expansion, now faced the daunting prospect of fighting a war on multiple fronts against increasingly determined and well-equipped enemies. In the Pacific, the American victory at Midway shattered Japan's illusion of invincibility, crippling its carrier fleet and putting an end to its westward expansion. In North Africa, the British triumph at El Alamein marked the beginning of the end for Rommel's Africa Corps, paving the way for the Allied invasion of Italy. The Battle of Stalingrad, perhaps the most significant turning point of the war, witnessed the destruction of the German Sixth Army, once considered invincible. The Soviet victory marked the beginning of the long and bloody Soviet counteroffensive that would eventually liberate Eastern Europe from Nazi rule. The Allied victories of 1942 to 1943, though hard-won and costly, provided a much-needed boost to morale and set the stage for the final offensives that would ultimately lead to the defeat of the Axis powers. The road to victory, however, would be long and arduous, paved with the sacrifices of millions. Section 1. The Axis. Triumvirate, architects of war. The Axis powers, a pact forged in ambition and fueled by ideologies of hate, found themselves led by three figures who would forever be etched in the annals of history as the architects of World War II.
Adolf Hitler, the charismatic yet ruthless dictator of Nazi Germany, rose to power on a wave of nationalism, promising to restore his nation to its former glory through expansion and racial purity.
Benito Mussolini, the swaggering Il Duce of fascist Italy, sought to revive the Roman Empire, casting himself as a modern-day Caesar destined to lead his nation to greatness through military conquest. Hideki Tojo, the iron-fisted Prime Minister of Japan, driven by a belief in his nation's racial superiority and imperial destiny, aimed to establish Japanese dominance over Asia and the Pacific. These three men, each driven by their own ambitions and warped ideologies, formed an alliance of convenience, their fates intertwined as they plunged the world into the abyss of war. Their leadership, characterized by a toxic mix of charisma, ruthlessness, and a disdain for international norms would have devastating consequences for millions. Section 2, Winston Churchill, the Lionheart's Roar. As the storm clouds of war gathered over Europe, one man stood defiant, a beacon of hope in a world teetering on the brink of chaos.
Winston Churchill, the newly appointed Prime Minister of Great Britain, embodied the indomitable spirit of his nation. His voice a rallying cry against the forces of tyranny.
With eloquence and unwavering resolve, Churchill rallied his people, declaring that Britain would never surrender, that they would fight on the beaches, in the fields, in the streets, and in the hills, never yielding to the Nazi threat. His words, imbued with a Churchillian blend of defiance, wit, and a profound belief in the righteousness of their cause, resonated deeply with the British people. Churchill's leadership transcended mere political acumen. It was a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. He understood the gravity of the threat posed by Hitler, recognizing that appeasement would only embolden the Nazi dictator. He knew that Britain, standing alone against the Nazi war machine, faced a perilous path ahead, but he remained undeterred. Throughout the darkest days of the war, when Britain stood alone against the Nazi onslaught, Churchill's resolve never wavered. He inspired his people with his unwavering belief in victory, his words a source of strength and defiance in a time of unimaginable hardship. Across the Atlantic, another leader grappled with the momentous decision of whether to lead his nation into the maelstrom of war. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the President of the United States, faced a nation deeply divided, weary of foreign entanglements after the horrors of World War I. Leading a nation to war, Roosevelt, a pragmatist and a shrewd observer of international affairs, recognized the growing threat posed by the Axis powers, yet he also understood the need for public support before committing American lives to a distant conflict. He skillfully navigated the treacherous waters of public opinion, gradually moving the United States towards a more active role in the war. Through a series of Lend-Lease agreements, Roosevelt provided vital aid to Great Britain and other nations fighting against the Axis powers. He understood that the fate of democracy itself hung in the balance, and that American involvement, while fraught with risk, was essential to defeating the forces of tyranny.
The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, galvanized the American people and propelled the United States into the war.
Roosevelt, his voice now a clarion call for freedom and democracy, rallied his nation to the cause, vowing to vanquish the forces of aggression and build a better world from the ashes of war. In the vast expanse of the Soviet Union, another leader faced the Nazi onslaught with an iron will forged in the crucible of revolution and tempered by years of ruthless consolidation of power. Joseph Stalin, the enigmatic and often brutal dictator of the Soviet Union, found himself thrust into an alliance of necessity with the capitalist West, their shared enemy, Nazi Germany, posing a threat to their very existence.
The steel resolve of the East.
Stalin, a master of political maneuvering and unyielding in his pursuit of Soviet dominance, viewed the war through a lens of realpolitik, his decisions often driven by a cold calculus of national interest, even if it meant sacrificing the lives of millions of his own people. The Eastern Front, a battleground of unimaginable brutality and suffering, became a testament to both the resilience of the Soviet people and the ruthlessness of their leader.
Stalin's scorched earth policy, while strategically sound in denying resources to the invading Nazi forces, resulted in widespread devastation and untold suffering for the civilian population caught in the crossfire. He demanded absolute obedience from his people, his paranoia and distrust extending even to his own military commanders.
Yet despite the horrors inflicted upon his own people, Stalin's determination to defeat Nazi Germany never wavered. He galvanized the Soviet people, urging them to fight for their motherland, their sacrifices fueling the Red Army's relentless advance westward, ultimately playing a decisive role in the Allied victory. The Second World War was a clash of ideologies, a battle between freedom and tyranny. At the helm stood leaders whose decisions shaped the course of the war and left an indelible mark on the world. The Holocaust, the systematic murder of 6 million Jews by the Nazi regime, stands as a chilling reminder of human depravity. The stories of those who perished and those who survived serve as a stark reminder of the human cost of indifference. On June 6, 1944 D-Day, Allied forces stormed the beaches of Normandy, France. The Battle of Normandy exacted a heavy toll, but the Allies gradually pushed inland, liberating Paris in August 1944. In the east, the Red Army launched massive offensives, pushing towards Berlin. On May 8, 1945 VE Day, Germany surrendered unconditionally, marking the end of the war in Europe. In the Pacific, the American strategy of island hopping involved capturing key islands and establishing air bases. From Guadalcanal to Iwo Jima, American forces fought their way across the Pacific. The decision to use atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki remains one of the most controversial acts in history. The bombings ended the war in the Pacific and ushered in the nuclear age. On the home fronts, citizens were called upon to sacrifice and adapt to the demands of total war. Women entered the workforce in unprecedented numbers, taking on jobs previously considered men's work. Propaganda urged citizens to conserve resources, buy war bonds, and remain vigilant. The experiences of those on the home front highlight the profound impact of total war on societies. The world emerged from World War II forever changed, with the United States and the Soviet Union as superpowers. The formation of the United Nations offered hope for a more just and cooperative international order. The Nuremberg trials held Nazi leaders accountable for their crimes. World War II's legacy continues to shape international relations and cultural norms. From the ashes of World War II, a new world order emerged, shaped by the victors. The United States embraced its role as a global superpower, while the Soviet Union consolidated control over Eastern Europe. The war's end heralded a period of decolonization and the rise of self-determination. World War II spurred technological advancements and the rise of international organizations like the United Nations. The horrors of the Holocaust served as a warning against unchecked hatred and intolerance. The war ignited a global movement for human rights and social justice. The lessons of World War II remind us of the fragility of peace and the importance of vigilance. We must never forget the victims and the sacrifices made. By remembering the past, we can strive to create a world where the horrors of war are relegated to history. Amidst the ruins of war, the human spirit endured, revealing extraordinary courage, compassion, and resilience. The legacy of World War II is a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit and the power of hope. Passing the torch of remembrance. As the generation that experienced World War II ages, it falls upon us to ensure their stories are not forgotten. The torch of remembrance is passed to a new generation, entrusted with preserving the memory of the war. We must engage in thoughtful reflection, examining the war's profound implications. By engaging with the history of World War II, we ensure the sacrifices of the past are not in vain. It is a story that we must never forget.